Emmanuel Macron's administration has confirmed it will not just suspend but actually completely abandon a proposed fuel tax hike. It comes amid fears of further unrest following weeks of violent nationwide protests that have already cost several lives and millions of euros in damage. With more on this, here's Charlotte Dubinsky.
Demands have been growing since these protests started almost 3 weeks ago, and so far many people are not happy, saying this is too little too late. But let's go back to what's been announced. That is now a major U-turn from the French government. No longer a suspension on the hike on fuel tax for 6 months, but actually a complete scrapping of it for the 2019 financial year. Well, this comes after weeks of protests, including violent protests here in Paris. Let's take a listen to what the French Prime Minister had to say on Wednesday.
The government is open to dialogue and has the backing of the majority in parliament. And the government has shown this by removing the tax increase from the 2019 financial budget. It will not be in that budget.
Well, the French Prime Minister had originally said on Tuesday that he would just be suspending that tax. So, as I say, a massive backtrack here from the French government. But many of those protesters, as I mentioned, saying it's too little too late. And we know that they are intending to go ahead with the protest on Saturday, which the Elysee Palace has described as being very likely to turn violent. We also know that one of the police unions has decided to join the Yellow Vest movement, offering its support and calling for its non-front staff to be taking part in that protest on Saturday here in Paris. And there have been some celebrations, some victories for individuals who are happy that they're going to see no tax increase on fuel in 2019. But many people say the President Macron is just so out of touch with everyday individual people, and they want much, much more. We've been speaking to one member of the Yellow Vest movement. This is what they had to say.
It's a step backwards. It shows Macron listens to the public only when things like this happen. People are angry, and the way Macron rules the country insults them. Even policemen are protesting. They are also fed up. No one listens to them. No one gives them opportunities. There is no way back. The country needs a new political strategy.
Well, last Saturday's protest was one of the most violent protests in Paris in decades. Some people saying they haven't seen anything like it since the May 1968 riots. We know that more than 100 people were injured in that protest, and more than 400 people were arrested as a result of the violence and damage that was being caused across the city. There was violence in other parts of France in other protests, but Paris was the main focus, and that's again where it's expected to be this coming Saturday. For now, the Yellow Vest movement say it's not ready to back down, it's not ready to stop. They want to change France, they want to bring down the government, and they're prepared to stay out on the streets to achieve their goals.
OK, well, let's get the thoughts now of political analyst Nikola Merkovich, who's based in Lyon, and he's with us now. You're very welcome, Nikola. Look, we've seen the situation here just over the last day or so where the French government has suspended tax hikes, then it's abandoned them completely. Are they panicking?
Oh, they're definitely panicking. They don't know what to do. I think the size of these protests, which are going across France, whether it be in Europe or even on the French islands, is humongous, and they haven't seen it coming. They should have seen it, because we have had a lot of signals showing that this was coming up. They didn't see it, and now they're panicking, and they don't know what to do. They're extremely clumsy. As you said, the first time they said they would impose a moratorium, they'd think about it. In the following hours, they said they'd stop all of it, so there'd be no more hikes. So we definitely don't know who's driving France now, but they definitely don't know what they are doing.
Will this move calm things down? Do you think it will prevent further demonstrations or violence?
No, because I think there's a fundamental problem that a lot of these politicians, and especially Macron and his team, do not understand. This is not just about tax increases. This is a problem within the French society. There are many problems which are not tackled by this government, which had not been tackled by previous governments, which are very entrenched in the French society today. We've got huge problems concerning crime rates, concerning unemployment. Taxes is one of the elements. Migration is one of the elements which the current government is not tackling. All these problems together, which have which are old problems. I mean, just Macron is this is his heritage, but he hasn't tackled them. And today, the yellow jackets in France are saying, we don't want any of this. It's not just about taxes. We want to change the French society. We want a new vision for France, and we want to believe in France, but definitely we want to get rid of the politicians who've brought us here. And that is the fundamental message out of these yellow jackets. And the reason why it's going to continue is because it's not just changing one or two laws, which is going to change anything. The French people today are expressing that they want a fundamental change within the French society.
Do you think there's a danger that this latest move by the government might actually encourage more violent protests, because people will see this and say, oh, look, it works. If we get out in the streets and cause problems, it forces the government to backtrack?
Well, of course, and that's a legacy in France. So you have to get violent if you want things to change. So this is also, of course, giving a positive message out to people who think that bringing out more violence is going to change even more. But so yes, there will be more violence, and also I do think that as the current government is extremely clumsy, they're trying to build on this violence to show that it is a violent movement, and that's not working. We've seen these past days mainstream media showing only videos, pictures of the violence and the unrest in major French cities, when 90% of these demonstrations across France are non-violent. A lot of the people are just going out, blocking tax facilities. They're blocking. They're making highways free for a lot of people. The mainstream media is not showing this, but the French people on the everyday basis are seeing that it's a real peaceful movement. They're seeing this. So there's such a discrepancy between what we're seeing on mainstream media and what's happening on that the French don't believe in this. And when they see that Macron and Philippe, the prime minister, are trying to use the violence to portray the yellow vest as a violent movement, they're even more sick of this message, because they know it's not true, and that this is going to happen, but this is not, I would say, the DNA of the yellow jacket movement, and the French know that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the public either. I mean, politicians are angry too. There are reports, aren't there, that three parties are going to table a vote of no confidence in the government. I think we can just play quickly what one of their representatives had to say about this. Let's just listen.
The force of the yellow vests was demonstrated. The government took a small step back, but this is a manoeuvre. It needs to be understood. They postponed the decision to raise or not raise taxes for the period after the elections to the European Parliament. However, the yellow vests clearly expressed their position. They do not want a fuel price hike, and they are right. And then the problem of the high cost of living itself will not be solved. People have an empty fridge now, not after 6 months.
I mean, a lot of discontent there in the French Parliament too. What are the chances of a no-confidence vote, do you think?
Well, it can't go through because Macron today, he's got more than the majority of people in the parliament who are in his political party. So there's no chance it will go through. I just think that now all the political parties are trying to take their distance from Macron, and they're going to piggyback on the movement, which, by the way, don't forget, is a grassroots movement. There are no political parties behind this movement, and they're trying, some of them, and we can understand that because that's more or less their job, to try to use the movement to show that they are a good opposition to Macron. We're seeing all opposition parties doing this today, which is something I would say which is more or less normal. But there's no chance that that vote will go through in the French Parliament today.
OK, Nicola, great to talk to you. We're going to leave it there. That was Nicola Merkovich, a political analyst based in Lyon in France. Thank you for your time.